Hello, hey everybody. My name is Sarah Avery, and I am the Executive Director of Quanta Change. Thank you so much for joining me today. So, I'm wondering, is there something in your life that just has to happen? Like, or else? Maybe it is something about how your body is, how your body looks, maybe about some kind of pretty intense fitness goal, say. Maybe it's that you want to be in a romantic partnership and that really needs to happen, or you really need to be married. Maybe you really need to have children. Maybe it's about like having a certain job or having a certain income, say. Maybe it's something else. I bet at this point, if there's something like that, you're nodding your head, you know what it is. This is not just like, oh, it'd be nice someday to have that, or it'd be nice if that happened, but really, unless this happens, I'm not going to be okay. Maybe it feels like there's no point in living if this thing does not happen for you. And maybe it gnaws at you every day. It's like the only thing on your mind a great deal of the time. It maybe colors every day. So if you've made progress towards it today, you're on top of the world. And if somehow you've walked away from progressing towards that today, you're just feeling devastated. Yeah. So I'm guessing if this is the case, you have also put everything in you towards reaching this goal in some way. Am I right? Yeah. So maybe if you've been listening to my videos for a while, you're thinking, oh no, Sarah, are you going to say this thing is learned distress based? No, don't tell me that. This is the thing I want most in the world. And if you don't know what learned distress is, I'll explain it in a moment. But yes, at least partially, I am saying if something feels this intensely urgent to you, yes, at least partially it's learned distress. If you are feeling devastated on a regular basis that this has not happened yet, yeah, definitely there's an element of learned distress there. It suggests that your survival, or at least it feels like your survival hinges on this thing coming about. And, you know, often with a lot of these things, there's also a well-being component to it. It's natural to want to find a life partner for lots of us. It's natural for lots of us to want children, or to feel healthy and strong, say, or to really want to make a difference in the world, maybe. And that's going to be through some certain job that you get. So there can often be a well-being component to this goal, and that can make it even more sort of confusing and complex. But I wade through this complexity with my clients all the time. So maybe you have figured out that maybe it's not so healthy to be so focused on this one thing happening and it needing to happen. So I'm wondering if you've tried to let go, to shift it in some way. Maybe you've done therapy or some kind of self-help work to try and shift how you feel about this. Has that helped? Are you feeling less urgent, less absolutist about this having to happen or else? If so, that is fantastic. This is really important to know that life is bigger than this one thing and better than this one thing happening. But if not, what I want you to know is it's not your fault. It's not that you haven't tried hard enough. It's not that you haven't worked hard enough at this technique that you've been trying. It's really that the methods that you've been trying have not been able to get this thing called learned distress and your survival mechanism for dealing with it out of the way. And that's really, it's learned distress and your survival mechanism that are driving this intense, urgent need for this thing to happen. So let me explain what I mean by that. So learned distress is the feeling that you absorbed very early in life, that there's something wrong with you being just the way that you are. as you were absorbing learned distress from the people around you and how they felt about being themselves, your brain was also developing a survival mechanism to help you cope with, control, manage, deal with this awful feeling that there's something wrong with you. Your survival mechanism also helped you fit well, sort of like a puzzle piece, with the people around you. And there are 6 patterns of learned distress plus survival mechanism together. And at the end of this video, I'm going to tell you what they are and tell you how you can find out for free which one of these patterns you have. But for now, what I'll say is that some of these survival mechanisms have within them this component that there is something that has to happen in order for me to be okay, given the presence of learned distress, given the presence of there's something wrong with me. As long as I can do something or be something, be some certain way, do some certain thing, then that will make me okay somehow. So you can understand why it feels so urgent, right? If this is the thing that's going to allow me to somehow overcome this feeling that something's wrong with me and live well and prove that there isn't something wrong with me, maybe you can understand why it's so intense, this need to achieve or be this certain way, right? So sometimes this is kind of a general thing for people. So if I win at everything, or if I'm perfect at everything, or if I get everyone's approval, then I will be okay. Then I will be able to manage this feeling that something's wrong with me, or cope with it, or keep it under control. But often there are also more specific things, like the examples I was giving earlier: marriage, children, a certain job, your body being a certain way. So very often that is the thing. So why hasn't all the work you've done to try and overcome this survival mechanism, to try and get the urgency of it out of the way, get it to quiet down, why hasn't that worked? Well, it's because of something I call the rational brain roadblock. So this is the phenomenon that while your rational brain is operating, there is a wall of resistance to change around your sense of self. Your sense of self is like a container that stores how you feel about being yourself, and it contains your learned distress, your survival mechanism for dealing with it, and your core well-being. And I'll explain what that is in a second. So your sense of self is really the driving force behind every moment, every situation, every condition in your life. Every feeling and thought that you have comes out of your sense of self. And so when your rational brain is operating, there's this wall of sort of protection around your sense of self because it contains your survival mechanism. And so your brain says, oh, no, you are not changing this. This is how I survive. You're not touching it. And so we have this problem here because when your rational brain is operating, you cannot actually change how you feel. That's to say that you can't think your way out of your learned distress, if that helps make more sense of it. So the good news is that quanta change, this work that I've been doing for the last 22 years, was actually developed to get through the rational brain roadblock. So it does that by working with your brain during sleep. So sleep is when your rational brain is entirely shut down, and with it, the wall of protection around your sense of self is deactivated, so we can get to that part of you that stores how you feel and bring about change there. The other reason for working with your brain during sleep is that is when your sense of self is getting recharged. Every night when you sleep, your sense of self is getting recharged with how you feel during the day you just lived. And largely what you've been recharging with every night of your life is your learned distress. Yeah, it sucks. So what quanta change allows you to do is say to your brain while you're sleeping, I don't want to recharge with learned distress anymore. I want to recharge with my core well-being. This is the feeling at your center that you are just great being yourself, that you have everything you need within you to be well, to have a good life, to achieve what you want to achieve, to be who you want to be, to fully be yourself, to have the safety to fully be yourself in the world. All of that is from your well-being. And so as you recharge with well-being instead of learn to stress at night, layers of learn to stress are peeled off permanently, gone. And as that happens, your core well-being just naturally expands to take the place that that learn to stress was sitting. And as you can imagine, you feel better. Your life starts to work better in certain ways. And in more specific ways, in the case of what we're talking about today, that urgent need for this thing to happen, that starts to quiet down. That pressure starts to come off of you. That weight on your shoulders starts to loosen and lighten. What really matters to you gets clearer. You might find that, oh, wait a second, that thing actually doesn't matter so much to me. And here's what really does. Maybe other goals really rise to the surface and you say, that's what I'm really here for. You may still want that same thing to happen, but you realize, first of all, the urgency isn't so great. And the impetus towards it, propelling towards it, actually happens more easily. And you have this really deep knowing that your well-being is your foundation, that your well-being's got your back. Instead of feeling like there's something wrong with me and I got to make that thing happen or else I'm not going to be okay. Okay, so that's kind of generalities, but let me give you a couple of examples of how I've seen this happen over the last 22 years in my practice. So one client I had, like many of us on the planet, really felt like her body didn't look right, and she needed it to look a different way. And this had been nearly a lifelong battle for her. She was really immersed in it a lot of the time. It was very often at the top of the list of things that she brought in to talk with me about every time. And it was really miserable for her. I'm wondering if you can relate to that. I can relate to that. So if you can too, totally hear you. This is a lot of us. And so this really painful thing, she started to unlearn layers of this learn to stress. And we went through waves of unlearning this, because as you can imagine, not only is it built up over time, but it's reinforced by society. Everything that's seen and shown in society is reinforcing this thing of you have to look a certain way. And so as she started to unlearn though, and as she unlearned some big layers of this, I remember this one session where she came in and she said, Sarah, I don't care anymore what I look like. I just want to feel comfortable in my own skin. I want to be healthy. I want to be strong. I want to feel good about being myself. I am so sick of beating up on myself. And that was a really big turning point. And from that place, she kept unlearning, and that gnawing need for something to change about how she looked started to ease up. She started to feel more ease in her own skin. She was actually saying at times, I actually feel pretty good in my own skin. I feel good about myself today, just being myself. So if this is something that you struggle with, I've helped lots of people with this. I've seen a lot of change for myself in this way. This really can change. So let me give you one more example, and I'm going to keep this one kind of general because it could be about almost anything. But I had a client who there was a certain life goal that she had, and it was at the top of the list of what we talked about nearly every time I talked with her about it. She said, this has to happen or else. This goal was like the embodiment of being a human being, an adult human being for her. That was all there was. And so she'd done lots and lots to work towards this goal that had not worked, heartbreakingly for her. And she'd been through so many struggles, depression, even feeling like her life wasn't worth living anymore, that she was really thinking about suicide a lot as a result of not meeting this goal yet. So if you can relate to any of that, whether it's at that level of intensity or something less, just realize you are not alone. There are lots and lots of us who have felt that way about some certain goal, including this client. And so as my client started to unlearn layers of this, we were going through layers of it. And this is one of those life goals that really had a big mix of well-being and learned distress in it. And I kept saying to her, you know, what I want to see you do is unlearn the learned distress, sitting there pressing on you, telling you this goal has to be met or else you are not okay. And then we will see what your well-being does with that. We're going to see if maybe your well-being, without all of that pressure sitting on it, can allow you to bring about this goal that you have wanted for so long. And so as she started to unlearn, we were really thinking about, at this point in her process, you know, maybe what if well-being brings this about? And the pressure started to lighten up. She was in this point that I'm going to talk about. She was going through kind of her big last Hail Mary pass at trying to make this thing happen. And then she called me for a session one day, and she was talking about it and talking through this process she was going through. And then she said, you know, here's what I've been thinking. I'm not sure that I actually want that. I've been looking around at, you know, friends and colleagues who have achieved that goal, and I'm thinking, do I actually want that? Is that what I really want? Do I need that in order to be okay? Maybe I don't. Maybe I actually don't want that. I'm still going to go for it. I'm still going for it. But I'm not sure I want it. And actually what I'm seeing is there are all of these other ways in my life that I am expressing myself, that I am embodying my uniqueness in the world. And those things are pretty great. And I'm really realizing just how full my life already is. And if this thing doesn't happen, I think I might be okay. That was a huge change. And I think if you're thinking about something that just feels right now like, no, it has to happen or else, period, end of story, you're thinking, whoa, wow, could I actually feel that way? Could I actually feel like, I don't know if I want that to happen? I don't know that that needs to happen. It might be okay if it doesn't. I don't know if that's possible. Well, what I'm here to tell you is that is possible. That shift in feeling is possible. Very often, like I said, if there's a big well-being component to it, then it may be that taking all the learned distress pressure off it allows it to finally happen. I can't predict that ever, but what is really great is once all of that learned distress urgency pressure is off, you feel so much better that your life has shifted a lot already, and you just feel a lot different about living and about yourself already. And that, believe it or not, can be life-changing, really life-changing. So if any of this is sounding interesting to you, if you're thinking, wow, I think maybe I want to see what that's like, the first step in finding out if this quanta change process is right for you is to find out which one of these 6 patterns of learned distress plus survival mechanism you have. And like I said, you can find out for free. I'll tell you how in a second. These patterns are called the idealist, the perfectionist, the optimist, the caregiver, the defeatist, and the dictator. Sometimes that one's called benevolent dictator. So the reason for finding out which one of these patterns you have is not just to do maybe what you've already done through therapy or some sort of process where you're just examining your childhood, examining your past, pulling all the icky, painful stuff out of your drawers and examining it and immersing yourself in it just to understand it better. That is not the point of finding out which pattern you have. The point of that is to see what you're going to be unlearning, peeling layers off of while you are unlearning learn to stress and your core well-being is expanding and really taking over. So the way that you find out which of these patterns you have is you're going to go to my website and take a free, in-depth, scientifically validated personality test. This is going to measure your learn to stress, and I am going to graph your answers and send you this personalized report with your pattern of learn to stress and survival mechanism and how quanta change typically unfolds and happens for someone with your pattern. So in order to do that, you're going to go to my website, Quanta Change, that's QUANTA change.com, and click on the free report button. And so I hope that you'll do that, and really just find out what life could look like with less of your learn to stress and more of your well-being in charge. So I hope that this has demystified some things for you today, helped you understand how there really is something beyond this singular goal, this singular way of being that you have felt that had to happen or else you weren't okay. I can tell you it's just such a relief and a joy to live with less and less of that pressure. So I hope that you'll go take the test, and thank you so much for joining me today. And I hope that you will join me again next Friday to find out another way in which quanta change really can help you feel good being you. Thank you.